I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's take a look at Ukraine and the impeachment inquiry hoax. And we have some of the testimonies, the full testimonies, the transcripts which have been released. The most notable one is probably the former Ukraine Ambassador Yovanovitch's 300-page testimony. It reveals a lot of assumptions, a lot of innuendo, not much substance. She really didn't know much about anything. She assumed a lot. And take us through this testimony, this transcript. It's quite lengthy, but try to get to the heart of it.
So it is very lengthy. I think we can sum it up very quickly. And I would say that's also true, even more true, of the other person whose transcript we've now had, which is this Michael McKinley, who was a top official in the State Department, closely advising, apparently, Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State. We've also had his transcript. About Yovanovitch and about McKinley, but specifically, more specifically about Yovanovitch, one of the things I really got very accustomed to over the course of Russiagate was that you'd have every so often this big shock horror revelation, the media or the Democrats, or specifically very often, many times, Adam Schiff himself, would spin some story that some great smoking gun had been discovered, some vast information had been revealed, which proved Donald Trump was indeed all the things that the media and the Democrats and all the others were alleging. I mean, you remember some of them. You remember Michael Cohen, for example. You remember some of the things about Flynn. You remember the Donald Trump Jr. meeting in Trump Tower. Anyway, you used to get lots and lots and lots of these. And then I would, put on my glasses, my reading glasses, and I'd read through all the material. And I'd go away wondering to myself, why am I wasting time reading all this rubbish? Because never, ever, not once, did any of it actually amount to anything. Now, if we're talking about these two transcripts, in McKinley's case, it's particularly difficult to understand why he was interviewed, because by his own admission, right at the start of the whole interview process, he actually comes along and says quite openly, well, I don't know anything about Ukraine. I don't know what was going on there. Mike Pompeo and I never discussed it. That's not really my concern. And then it turns out that what he's really worried about is the fact that he doesn't like the personnel policies in the State Department of the former Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, and of Mike Pompeo. And that's really about it. I mean, he has some things to say about Yovanovitch and about the way in which the Trump administration supposedly doesn't stand up for ambassadors. But really, I mean, there isn't anything there. It's difficult, as I said, to understand why McKinley was even called. Now, Yovanovitch is very marginally more interesting. There is one important revelation, which I will come to. But I mean, most of it seems to reveal, nearly all of it, seems to revolve around the fact that she's extremely unhappy about the fact that she was sacked. She claims that in February, she was tipped off by Ukraine's interior minister, a very dangerous and unpleasant man called Arsen Avakov, who was appointed interior minister. That's in charge of the police right after the coup attempt. The Maidan coup in February 2014. And alarmingly is very much still in post. He's still in charge of the police. He was in charge of the police when Poroshenko was president, and he is now still in charge of the police now, even after Poroshenko has ceased to be president, and even though Zelensky is now president. Anyway, he apparently tipped off Yovanovitch that Giuliani was supposedly, to use the expression, intriguing with certain Ukrainian businessmen, two Ukrainian American businessmen, and they turn out to be Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, these two people who were both, if you remember, arrested and charged with campaign crime violations a few weeks ago. So it's quite clear that the evidence against them comes from Yovanovitch, and through Yovanovitch from Arseny Avakov in Ukraine. And that should already make us very concerned about the validity of that prosecution. So she's worried. She knows a little bit about that. She's also clearly very angry that Yuri Lutsenko, who was prosecutor general under Poroshenko, was giving interviews about her to The Hill, to John Solomon at The Hill, in which he said that he told John Solomon that Yovanovitch had told him to steer clear of certain prosecutions. But about all the substance, about, the quid pro quos that's supposed to have happened between Zelensky and Trump, about the substance of the telephone call between Zelensky and Trump, she seems to have known absolutely nothing, actually. And I would go even further, and I would say that she doesn't seem to have read, when she gave her evidence to the House Intelligence Committee, she doesn't have read the transcript of the Trump-Zelensky call properly, because she seems to be confusing Viktor Shokin, who was the prosecutor, the Ukrainian prosecutor, who was investigating Burisma Holdings, with Lutsenko, who was his successor, Shokin's successor, who closed down the investigation of Burisma Holdings. So again, it's all been spun, as so many stories were over the course of Russiagate. Now it's happening again with Ukrainegate. It's spun as if some terrible revelations were there. But it turns out, when you drill down to it, there isn't really anything of substance there at all. The only thing that I found in all this massive material, which was at all interesting, but it goes completely against the Ukrainegate narrative, is that Viktor Shokin, the procurator who was sacked, who was investigating Burisma Holdings, it turns out was extremely close to Poroshenko, former President Poroshenko. And now I'm going to quote Yovanovitch's exact words. President Poroshenko and Mr. Shokin go way back. In fact, I think they are godfathers to each other's children. So this was, this was a big deal. In other words, getting Shokin sacked was a very big deal. And if you go back to some of the interviews, some of the programs that we've done, you remember that we touched on Oleg Tsarev, who was this exiled Ukrainian politician who's provided some information about Ukrainian politics. He said that the investigation into Burisma Holdings was launched by Poroshenko as president of Ukraine as a kind of shakedown of Zlochevsky, the owner of Burisma Holdings, and in order basically to, one oligarch, Poroshenko, who's a big oligarch in Ukraine, going after another. And that Zlochevsky, the owner of Burisma Holdings, brought in Hunter Biden and Devon Archer and former President Kwasniewski of Ukraine, of Poland, in order to get their protection from an investigation by Poroshenko, which after the Maidan coup, he knew was coming. Now, Yovanovitch has not confirmed that, but she's given further evidence of this very close connection between Poroshenko and Shokin, which appears to corroborate, at least to some degree, what Oleg Tsarev was saying. But that's the only thing. That's the only thing there that Yovanovitch has said that I found at all interesting. In all other respects, she's angry that she's sacked. She grumbles extensively about it. She denies that she told former procurator Lutsenko to avoid prosecuting or investigating some people, and that's it.
Yeah, the interesting part about this story, and we'll wrap it up with Yovanovitch and the transcript, and we'll move on to more interesting stuff coming out of John Solomon with Hunter Biden.
Yes.
But
Yes.
what I found interesting was that Adam Schiff takes 9 pages of this 300-page transcript,
Yes.
leaks it to the media,
Yes.
and this is like a highlight reel of you know, everything that Yovanovitch said. The way that Schiff was, you know, packaging it was so that it could just be pure propaganda and present a very negative picture
Yes.
about Trump and the Zelensky phone call, what was going on. And they run with it. But the fact of the matter is, Alexander, from what I gather from this transcript, Yovanovitch was very much like Robert Mueller. If we were able to actually see this testimony live,
Yes.
we probably would have seen something very much along the lines of Mueller's testimony, which goes to show that the Democrats are actually learning something here by doing this closed-door secret meeting. They know that a lot of these State Department diplomats are really clueless. And
Yes.
like you said, she probably didn't really study that transcript in detail at all. And if we were able to actually see it live, I bet you that's what it would reveal, that she's really clueless, much the same way that Robert Mueller was clueless on all of this stuff. But Schiff is doing everything in secret, and he's just leaking, you know, summaries that will make Trump look bad. And he was wrong on a lot of things, because when you get into the transcripts, there's a lot of inconsistencies, like the one where, and I'm looking at right now, where he leaked it to the press that Pompeo was asking Sean Hannity about Yovanovitch's recall, which is wrong, because, you know, if you read further into the transcript, that's not what Pompeo was contacting Hannity about. He was actually contacting Hannity about attacks against Yovanovitch. So he was actually trying to protect her in a way, trying to protect his staff member in a way. So I mean, it's very sinister what Schiff is doing, what Democrats are doing.
Yes. Well, I think what has happened is that the House Democratic Party leadership, Pelosi and co, saw the absolute debacle of the hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee headed by Jerry Nadler. I mean, as you said, they saw the utter debacle of Robert Mueller's testimony, and they've decided that they're not going to let that happen again. So, as you absolutely rightly say, they're holding all these meetings in secret, or have been up to now, and they're doling out small amounts of extraordinarily manipulated tidbits about them to the media in order to construct a narrative. By the way, that was essentially what Adam Schiff was doing throughout Russiagate. He's gone a whole step further in this case now. And I get to add something else. If we'd actually seen these interviews happen in the real, one of the things that comes across very obviously to me is the extent to which Schiff is continuously leading the witnesses. He is helping them along. He's prompting them. He's giving them sort of guidance. He's protecting them from cross-examination. It's quite extraordinary to see the extent to which he does that. And even then, as I said, the witnesses don't reveal anything of great substance. They come across as very dithery and, as you say, confused about lots of things. In the case of McKinley, he clearly doesn't know very much about anything very much, and he doesn't even seem terribly interested in truth. Yovanovitch, as I said, comes across as being very angry about the fact that she got sacked, but doesn't really seem to know very much about anything else. I think they would have come across as dithery and uninformed, and frankly, as very defensive. And I would add the other thing that comes across from the transcripts, particularly first couple of pages of the transcripts, is that the Republicans were absolutely furious about the way in which Adam Schiff was running the whole thing, and they were making it extremely clear and reading their anger into the record of the transcripts. So if you want to read the first couple of pages, it's all there. But as I said, ultimately, it doesn't really, these transcripts certainly don't advance the Ukraine Gate scenario very at all. I mean, they're not evidence that I can see that could be used in any properly conducted impeachment proceedings. I personally wouldn't even call these people witnesses because I don't really see what they've witnessed.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the technique is so sneaky, shifty Schiff.
Yes.
I mean, you get someone to sit down and testify for 10, 12, 15 hours, get them to just ramble on, get 300 pages, and you just kind of, pick the 5, 6, 7 pages that are the juiciest, and then you leak it to the media, which is on your side and it's going to comply fully. And there you go. I mean, it's absolutely, completely sneaky and rotten to the core.
Yes. Well, he did that. I remember him doing that, Adam Schiff doing that during Russiagate. I mean, you remember the Battle of the Memos when Nunes and Gowdy published a memo about Pfizer abuse after examining the documents there. Adam Schiff then published his own counter memo. That was completely wrong. It said things which it turns out now we know was simply not true. Who am accustomed to reading these things, I could tell that there were serious problems even then with Adam Schiff's memo, but counter memo. But of course, that was the one the media ran with, and they're doing exactly the same now. I mean, this whole process is outrageous. Because as you correctly say, the media are running with Schiff's distillations of this testimony and are treating these two people, McKinley and Yovanovitch, as important witnesses. And as I stressed, they're not actually witnesses. I mean, there's no real evidence here of any of the things that Donald Trump is supposed to be investigated over. Can I just remind people what that is? He is supposed to have withheld military aid to Ukraine in order to get Ukraine, or President Zelensky of Ukraine, more precisely, to undertake investigations of the Bidens. There's no evidence of any of that here at all. There just isn't. And McKinley, at least, has the integrity right at the start of his testimony to actually say so. He says, I want to make it absolutely clear. I don't know anything about any of this. That's not what I'm here to talk about. So, which begs the question of why, in that case, are you here? What are you going to talk about? It's very weird, and it really is, I'm going to say this frankly, a case of manufacturing the appearance of evidence. You call in these witnesses, you interview them for hours and hours and hours. You publish, as you correctly say, these very distilled, out of context summaries in which, you take a few words out of context, you package them together to look like they're really something important. You add a few material inaccuracies and misrepresentations into these so-called summaries, which are not actually really summaries. And that way you create the impression that some great investigation is happening into some terrible crime and that witnesses are coming forward. As I said, these people are not witnesses. They have no actual factual evidence that takes these allegations against Donald Trump forward in any way. As I say, got very bored having to waste hours of time going over this time and time again in Russiagate, and I've just come across an even more blatant example of it here in Ukrainegate with the evidence of these two people.
Yeah, the whole investigation started with exactly what you said, Alexander. Let's not forget the whole
No.
thing was a
No.
phone call transcript where
Yeah.
the word favor was referencing the Russiagate,
Yes.
goings on with Ukraine and how it was helping the Democrats with CrowdStrike and Russiagate.
Yes.
And what the media did, what the Democrats did, is they took that word favor and they copy and pasted it 3 paragraphs down, inserted it in front of one sentence where Trump says, where actually Zelensky even brings it up, and then Trump says, Joe Biden and what was going on there. And that's how the whole thing started, was doing this exact thing that you said right now.
Exactly.
It's just a copy-paste trick.
It's a copy-paste trick. And that particular sentence, and I am very, very tired of pointing this out. That particular sentence doesn't even say to Zelensky, I'd like an investigation of the Bidens. There's no reference in that sentence to Trump actually prompting an investigation of the Bidens. Certainly, the favor, as you rightly say, has nothing to do with it. And I'm tired of mentioning this fact, but it's important to say it because it amazes me that so many people are still taking their cue from Adam Schiff's summaries conversation, which I say it's Adam Schiff, but obviously it's the whistleblower. But I've no doubt Adam Schiff had some hand in drafting the whistleblower complaint. So from the way in which this telephone conversation is being as I misrepresented, rather than the conversation itself, of which an accurate transcript exists. I invite them to do the same thing that Donald Trump is inviting people to do. Read the transcript. It doesn't say what Adam Schiff and co. says it does. But there you are. They did it with the transcript of the Zelensky-Trump call. They've done it with Yovanovitch and with McKinley. As I said, there's nothing there.
Yeah, Trump had a rally in Kentucky the other day, and he was giving out shirts, and everyone had shirts that just said, read the transcript. Just literally written right there. Read in red. Read the transcript. I think they're doing it to make us crazy, the Democrats and the deep state. Maybe that's their plan all along, to just make us go absolutely nuts.
I know, but
I can't explain it otherwise.
There is a sort of bloody-mindedness in refusing to read the transcript in order to try and maintain the fiction about this great conspiracy attempted conspiracy between Donald Trump and the Ukrainians. When, as I said, the transcript itself proves that there wasn't one. I mean, you made the point, I think, in one of our videos recently, that the word favor itself argues against there having been a quid pro quo. Because a favor, you're asking for someone to do you a favor, that does not mean that argues against you putting pressure on them. But there we are, as I said.
We're getting sucked into it now.
I know we are. Even Yovanovitch hasn't read the transcript. Let's move on.
She didn't read the transcript. Let's move on. Alexander. Okay. Hunter Biden, Burisma, Joe Biden, all the corruption allegations that are going around here, and they're really sucking in the Obama administration as well.
Yes.
Let's recap what you said earlier in the video and what we've said in many videos, and I'll try to summarize it in simple terms the way I understand it.
Yeah.
Burisma was undergoing a shakedown from President Poroshenko.
Yes.
Poroshenko was going to them and saying, you know what, guys? The IMF and the EU, they want us to hike up the energy prices. You guys already make a nice fat profit. Now you're going to make an even fatter profit. I want it. I want my cut.
Yes.
I want my cut.
Yes.
So that's what Poroshenko was doing to them. Zelensky, who's the front man, I think we've said it many times, he's probably not the real owner of Burisma. He's the front man. Anyway, he says, damn it. Crap. I better get some protection against Poroshenko. I can't go much higher than Poroshenko. Right? And Poroshenko's sitting there and saying, I'm going to get my AG, my prosecutor, to investigate you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I don't get my cut. And that's what he did. So Zlochevsky says, how much higher can I go? The United States. Who better? The vice president, who's making constant trips all the time to Ukraine. Gets Hunter Biden, puts him on the board, gets his protection. Biden goes to Poroshenko and says, fire this guy. As you said earlier in the video, it's very serious because Poroshenko probably really likes Shokin. He was very close to him, godfathers to each other's kids.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to money and billions of dollars, Poroshenko says, screw you, you're fired. We're talking about billions of dollars here.
Yeah.
So that's the protection. I summarized it well, correct?
Absolutely. That is exactly how it is increasingly looking.
Right.
It's a shakedown by Poroshenko, who is behaving in a godfatherly way, and as Ukraine's godfather. He gets his sidekick, Shokin,
Exactly.
who is formally the godfather of his children, and of whose children Poroshenko is the godfather too. We have that useful piece of information from Yovanovitch, and he gets Shokin to come along, threaten Zlochevsky, Burisma Holdings. I'm increasingly coming round to the view, by the way, that not only is Zlochevsky a front man, but almost certainly the man behind who's, the real owner is probably Kolomoisky. I mean, that makes increasing sense to me.
We said
Anyway,
Pinchuk, but I also agree. I think it's Kolomoisky.
I think it's beginning to look increasingly to me like Kolomoisky for various reasons, which we don't need to go into. And of course, so Kolomoisky, if it is Kolomoisky and Zlochevsky, bring all these important people along, all these well-connected people along. Hunter Biden, who is the son of the vice president of the United States, Joe Biden. Joe Biden at the time is the real ruler of Ukraine. He actually comes along and he chairs meetings of the Ukrainian cabinet. There's photographs of him doing precisely that. So he brings in Hunter Biden, pays him, it seems like it was more like $80,000 a month, not $50,000 a month, as has been reported. He has Devon Archer there as well. He's got Kniazniewski of Poland, who is, as I said, connected with Donald Tusk, who is the president of the European Council, the highest body within the European Union. And what happens? Shokin, on behalf of Poroshenko, comes along looking for the cut, as you rightly say, from the increase in energy prices. This, it should be said, we've had from Oleg Tsarev, this ex-Ukrainian politician, but he seems to know what he's talking about in all of this. So Poroshenko and Shokin come along, and what does Zlochevsky and his backer, he's the real owner, decide to do? They decide to go to the people that they're buying all this important protection from. And what we've now learned from John Solomon, and I think this is extraordinarily interesting, is that in fact there were contacts during the time of the Obama administration running up, for a long time, in which people from Burisma Holdings were coming to the United States, speaking to all sorts of senior officials within the Obama administration, complaining about Shokin, complaining about the investigation, and trying to get the United States to intervene to get Shokin sacked. So there we are. It's apparently there's a paper trail. You've been saying all along that there was a paper trail, and it seems John Solomon has it.
He has it from a Freedom of Information Act request. He's got all the documents there, Alexander, from the State Department.
Yes.
And it looks like, they've been courting, Burisma's been courting the Obama administration for many years now, trying to get Poroshenko and Shokin off their back and to get the cases dismissed. And they went multiple times to set up meetings. Let's see, I'm looking through Solomon's article here with the Undersecretary of State, Catherine A. Novelli. They got meetings with her. They tried to get meetings with her. They tried to get meetings with the Deputy Secretary of State of John Kerry's, and it looks like Hunter Biden actually did secure meetings. Solomon has the the text messages where they did meet, though we don't really know what they talked about or what the outcome of those meetings were. Secretary of State Blinken, who was the Undersecretary of State to Kerry. We also have confirmation via John Solomon that Devon Archer actually did get meetings with John Kerry. He has those messages as well, Alexander. I'll put a link of John Solomon's article in the description box so everyone can take a look at it. It's pretty thorough, pretty detailed. The interesting part about all of this, what I think is really interesting, is you have three partners in Rosemont Seneca with this investment firm, this investment vehicle. And those partners are Hunter Biden, Devon Archer, and Christopher Hines. But Christopher Hines distanced himself early from all this Ukraine stuff going on. He didn't want any part of Burisma, and he refused being put on Burisma's board, it seems. And then you had, I think it was 3 months ago, where John Kerry also distanced himself from Burisma, along with, I mean, they made a public statement about it, that they had nothing to do. This is before all of this stuff broke. They knew what was coming. Let me read you an excerpt from Solomon's article, and you can expand from it. Whatever the subject of Archer and Kerry's meeting, its existence is certain to spark interest. That's because Secretary Kerry's stepson, Christopher Hines, had been a business partner with both Archer and Hunter Biden at the Rosemont Seneca investment firm in the United States. Hines, however, chose not to participate in the Burisma dealings. In fact, he wrote an email to his stepfather's top aides in May 2014, pointedly distancing himself from the decision by Hunter Biden and Devon Archer to join Burisma's board. Hines' spokesman recently told the Washington Post that Hines ended his relationship with Archer and Hunter Biden partly over the Burisma matter. The lack of judgment in this matter was a major catalyst for Mr. Hines ending his business relationships with Mr. Archer and Mr. Biden. Hines' spokesman, Chris Bastardi, told the newspaper. This contradicts everything that Biden and Joe Biden and Hunter Biden have been saying about, Burisma, and we didn't think this was a conflict of interest, and we didn't know what was going on and all this stuff. This contradicts everything, the fact that Christopher Hines said, you know what, guys, don't get me involved in any of this. It seems Christopher Hines actually has some brains and some common sense.
Yes, absolutely, he does. And can I just say, I'm going even further than this. I mean, there's no question at all, I think, that obviously Burisma and Zlochevsky were actively lobbying in the US with very senior officials to try to get these investigations blocked. But, and as you correctly say, Hines had been seriously worried about the connection with Burisma Holdings. I would add, by the way, that there were also proceedings against Burisma Holdings in Britain, and that its assets were being frozen there. And the British authorities were also looking at Zlochevsky. So lots going on. But not only is there a major lobbying effort going on, but we find, or rather John Solomon has found, that there are actually emails passing between US officials in which they not only discuss Burisma Holdings, but they actually mention the fact that Hunter Biden and Devon Archer are directors. And it seems that the fact that these people are directors is actually brought up by lobbyists, Washington lobbyists, who are working on behalf of Burisma Holdings. I'm going to just quote one of these emails, which John Solomon has published. These are email exchanges amongst US officials. But it goes on, it says this: per our conversation, Karen Tramontano of Blue Star Strategists, that's clearly a lobbying company, requested a meeting to discuss with Undersecretary Novelli remarks alleging Burisma of corruption. She noted, this is obviously Tramontano, who is as a lobbyist acting for Zlochevsky and Burisma. She noted that two high-profile US citizens are affiliated with the company, including Hunter Biden as a board member. Tramontano would like to talk with Undersecretary Novelli about getting a better understanding of how the US came to the determination that the company is corrupt. According to Tramontano, there is no evidence of corruption, has been no hearing or process, and evidence to the contrary has not been considered. So here we have a lobbyist, this Karen Tramontano, lobbying the State Department, Undersecretary Novelli, Catherine Novelli, on behalf of Burisma, saying Burisma is not actually a corrupt company. We can say that it's not a corrupt company because there are two high-profile US citizens are affiliated with the company, including Hunter Biden as a board member. So there it is. It's in black and white. It's passing within the State Department. A major lobbying operation. Hunter Biden's name is being invoked by Burisma Holdings, and Burisma Holdings is lobbying the US government, saying that there's no reason to think we are corrupt. We've got all these important Americans, including Hunter Biden, on our board. And sure enough, what happens? Joe Biden comes along, father of Hunter Biden, and Shokin, the man who's coming up with all these investigations, and the man who is supposedly closing in on Zlochevsky and on Burisma, gets sacked. Now, it seems to me that this is so straightforward. I do ask myself why there are people who still doubt it. We have a shakedown from Poroshenko and Shokin. We have Burisma buying protection from people like, by employing people like Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. And we see Burisma using that protection which it has bought to get Shokin sacked and to ensure that this investigation doesn't proceed. I mean, this is real. All the nonsense we were talking about with Yovanovitch and McKinley isn't.
That's a distraction.
Surely,
yeah.
Exactly. Surely this is what ought to be investigated. It shouldn't be left to John Solomon to do it.
This is crystal clear, Alexander. And John Solomon's documents that he's gotten from the State Department corroborate the theory and the story that Oleg Tsarev has told, and the theory that we're playing out. In other words, the whole thing was just about get Poroshenko off our back, get him to stop, blackmailing us, for lack of a better word, get him to stop asking for these kickbacks.
Yes.
And fire Shokin. That's simple.
It's
Poroshenko paid off, got his billions, Shokin gone, and the story. Burisma's in the clear now.
Exactly.
And they were lobbying the State Department very, very hard. That's the State Department of John Kerry, and you have Devin Archer, who's the roommate of Christopher Hines. Let's not forget that. They went to school together and they roomed together, so they're very close. And then you had the vice president's son. So there you go.
So there it is. It's all there. It's all documented. It is all fact. Everything we've just been speaking about is actual fact. John Solomon has the emails. He has the documents which prove them. You can go to his article and you can see them there. So why is this not being looked into? Surely this is the real story, not as I said, all the nonsense Yovanovitch and McKinley were saying. Again, it's so eerily like Russiagate. I remember saying time and again during all our videos about Russiagate, all these allegations that we're hearing about, a conspiracy between Trump and the Russians, there is no substance to them. The real scandal, the thing we can prove is the Pfizer abuse, the provocations, the fact that people were placed under surveillance, the fact that people's names were unmasked. All of that is real, The allegations against Trump in Russiagate are not real. And here we see the same thing happening with Ukrainegate. We have all kinds of allegations which are not real. They're not. There's no substance to them. There's a good piece, by the way, by Pat Buchanan. He says, the allegation that Trump withheld arms from Ukraine in order to extort the Ukrainians into investigating the Bidens. The Ukrainians didn't investigate the Bidens, and they still got their arms. So where is the extortion? Where is the evidence of extortion? There is none in that transcript. So here we have, again, a fictitious, an invented, a concocted conspiracy put together out of, stray words, cobbled together by the overactive mind of Adam Schiff against the reality of a real lobbying effort by Burisma cashing in on the protection it had bought from the government of the United States by employing people like the vice president's son.
Cut and dry.
It's cut and dry.
It's cut and dry. And Alexander, on a final note, I think it's Kolomoisky, and I'll say it very quickly.
Yes. No.
Burisma, Cyprus company, Cyprus accounting firm, and I know the accounting firm as well that does their books. It's one of the big three, I would say. Burisma, based out of Limassol. The company, and Kolomoisky has, I believe, a Cypriot passport, an Israeli passport, and a Ukraine passport.
Yes.
And he has a very strong presence with his Privat bank in Cyprus as well. So I think he keeps his business very close together in this country's business activities. That's why I think it's Kolomoisky who's behind Burisma at the end of the day.
Yes.
That's my quick 2 cents there.
Well, there you go. I mean, this is all very interesting. I mean, I didn't know that, all these things that you said. There are other things that make me think that it's Kolomoisky. I mean, one of the things to say about Kolomoisky and Poroshenko is that they are known to dislike each other very much. And Poroshenko was going at this precise time after Kolomoisky in a very big way, involving all sorts of other things, including Privat Bank, which was, of course, Kolomoisky's bank. So in that kind of context, it would make complete sense for Poroshenko, who undoubtedly does know who the true owner of Burisma is. It makes complete sense for Poroshenko to go after Burisma also, and to try and force a shakedown there. That's why I think it was Kolomoisky. What you've just said adds to the detail and to the factual substance that also points to it being him.
Yeah, war between oligarchs.
A war between oligarchs, which is very common in Ukraine, happens all the time.
Yeah, unfortunately for Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, Devin Arch and all these guys, they decided to get involved. Now it's coming back to get them.
Well, indeed, and it will bite them in a bad way. I mean, this is not. I don't think this is going to go away.
No, not at all. The facts are too strong. They're glaringly obvious, and then Solomon once again has shown what was really going on. And we have a lot more dots connected thanks to Solomon's report on the State Department transcripts and documents.
Yes.
All right, Alexander, another long video as always when we discuss Ukraine-Gate or Russiagate.
These Ukraine-Gate and Russiagate stories are always made to look far more complicated than they really are. And that is why we have to spend so much time explaining them. I mean, when somebody is trying to fool you, they make it look very complicated. In essence, this is actually, again, very simple. It's what you said. They're trying to divert away from the substance by fabricating a conspiracy between Trump and Zelensky, which is completely fictitious.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Alexander, for everybody, like the video, subscribe, click that subscribe button. PayPal, Patreon, Subscribe Star, please donate. Soundcloud, iTunes. You can get an audio copy of this video. And of course, go to the Duran shop. You're wearing a polo. I'm wearing a t-shirt. But Alexander, outside of the Duran shop, you want to say a couple of words, but I also want to tell all our viewers to join us on Telegram. I'm posting all the videos, all our articles, all the links that we find interesting on our Telegram channel. You can search it, The Duran.com on Telegram. Subscribe there. Alexander, some quick words to wrap it up.
Yes, indeed. And of course, go to our shop, buy these absolutely amazing things like these beautiful magic mugs that we drink from, Alex and I, 15 ounces, beautiful porcelain. This one with the emblem of the city of Moscow with the double-headed eagle and St. George there, slaying the dragon of untruth, as we try to do on our programs. And also, as well as those, you can get all kinds of other mugs, and you can get these amazing shirts. Well, there you go. Alex has got one with Alpha Force, the Russian Special Forces unit, the direct equivalent of the US Delta Force. And you can get all these amazing shirts, these polo shirts that a polo shirt I'm wearing now, our t-shirts, our long sleeve t-shirts, our v-neck shirts, all 100% cotton, all amazing quality, fit wonderfully, look magnificent. My wife loves me in them. So you can get shirts, you can get mugs, you can get hats, you can get hoodies, you can get stickers, you can get great things from our shop. Help the Duran, go to our shop, buy these great things, be the proud owner of them. Alex will tell you how to do it.
You'll find a link to the duranshop.com in the description box down below. And Alexander on the Telegram channel, I'll also post special coupon codes every now and then on our merchandise to everyone that's subscribed to the Telegram channel. So I'll throw those out there every now and then for discounts on all our merchandise or specific products as well. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.